My wife calls me a useless leech who doesn't even clean the house. Stephen boasted during the company-sponsored barbecue he worked for. There I was, his wife, attending alongside him, only to find Stephen continually putting me down in front of everyone. He lamented how worthless I was, and how he envied the wives of other men. Hearing Stephen's words, I felt the piercing cold stares of his colleagues. The look in their eyes was incredibly painful, deeply wounding my spirit. But today was different. I was no longer going to stay silent. But I gathered my courage and finally spoke up, revealing Stephen's true nature to his astonished co-workers and the confused women among them. However, the person most shocked was the CEO. My name is Harper, a 32-year-old who works at a boutique. I actually wanted to continue working at the company I joined right after graduating from college. I liked the work at the company, but the stress from everything else was unbearable. About 3 years after joining, I finally submitted my resignation before it was too late. Then I worked in various supermarkets and bookstores until I found my place at a boutique. Starting to work there, my life began to shift in a positive direction. Being a fan of collecting trinkets, working at a boutique felt almost like heaven. I had better workplace relationships than at any previous job, making every day enjoyable. A few months after starting at the boutique, as I got used to the job and began focusing more on my personal life, I faced a concern. It was the fact that I was not only unmarried, but didn't even have a boyfriend. Suddenly, I realized all my friends were either married or in relationships. I thought it might be time to consider marriage. However, with a female-only workplace and indoor hobbies, I had no chance to meet someone. I envied the couples I saw. I wanted to meet a wonderful man and have a happy life too. That thought kept running through my mind. Then one day, my life reached a turning point. As usual, a friend visited the store as a customer, which started it all. The store was empty, so we chatted and got on the topic of love. I took a chance and shared my lack of encounters with men, and to my surprise, she offered to set up a party. She was single too, but not interested in marriage as much as me. However, she had many connections and offered to set it up for me. On the day of the party, I met a wonderful man, Stephen, and we ended up getting married. Stephen worked for a major corporation, providing both financial and emotional stability. He was kind to me, who wasn't used to much male attention, and always put me first during our relationship. This might have been the happiness I was longing for. I felt more and more of that thought. So when Stephen proposed, I was genuinely happy. Becoming a housewife after marriage, I tried my best to make Stephen comfortable at home. I cooked his favorite meals and kept the house clean. You made my favorite, huh? Yeah, eat a lot. Seeing his smile became my purpose in life. He would spend all weekend with me and even help with the chores. I thought to myself, what a lucky person I am. The days of worrying about never getting married felt nostalgic. However, a few months into our marriage, Stephen and my life began to tilt in a wrong direction. Contrary to the beginning, Stephen started to neglect me. His attitude worsened, leaving me in distress. Stephen, when will you be home today? I don't know. He used to tell me his arrival time, but now he evaded the question. And when I asked about dinner, he'd say, don't need dinner. Yet, I thought maybe he was just tired or busy with work. Indeed, I had been a full-time employee before, but Stephen worked for a well-known major corporation. His level of busyness was something I could not compare to. Take care. I continued to see him off every morning, but Stephen seemed to find me bothersome. I wonder since when he stopped taking the sandwiches I made or stopped eating the meals I cooked. I had bought recipe books, hoping to make delicious meals for Stephen, now that we were married. But now, just seeing them makes me sad. When will we ever spend time together again? The more I worried, the more I felt concerned. Yet no matter how much I fretted, Stephen's behavior wouldn't change. If anything, I felt his treatment of me getting worse. Seeing our shoes slightly out of line at the entrance, he'd snap. "Can't you even keep the shoes tidy?" The rare times he ate my cooking, he'd say, "How can you serve such terrible food? I doubt your sanity. I'd rather eat sandwiches from the grocery store every day than your awful cooking." That's so cruel. I was shocked to be directly called out on my cooking. He used to enjoy my meals, asking for seconds. He said my cooking was the best. Were all those words lies? The more I thought about it, the more I doubted everything about Stephen's behavior until now. Then one day, Stephen surprisingly initiated a conversation. "Hey." "What's up?" Stephen was talking to me, which alone made me happy. "In a week, we're having dinner with my mom and dad at a fancy restaurant, so dress appropriately." "Am I included too?" "Yeah, that's what I'm saying." I hadn't seen my in-laws in a long time. Not since we had a wedding ceremony, and only met them when we announced our marriage. I couldn't believe we were going to dine with my in-laws. They're very kind people, just like Stephen used to be. I started paying more attention to my skincare and hair care, even buying a dress that would suit the restaurant perfectly. I was all set. I looked forward to meeting my in-laws. But the in-laws I met were not the ones I remembered. They were blatantly displeased when talking to me only. Why? After hearing from my mother-in-law, the reason was clear. "Harper, I hear you've been lazing around at home without doing any housework." "What?"
"Yeah, apparently, despite wanting to be a housewife, you neither cook nor clean. I had no idea you were that kind of person."
There must be some misunderstanding. No, it's more like Stephen has been feeding them lies about me. No, that's not true at all.
No. What are you talking about? You're just lazing around, not cleaning."
How could he come to such a conclusion? I just couldn't understand. "I'm a housewife too, you know. I worked hard on household chores for my hard-working dad. And you're saying you don't appreciate Stephen." "No, I haven't been doing any of that."
"Hey, quiet down. Keep it down."
I tried to deny it, but Stephen stopped me. I could only talk about my side to the in-laws. Probably Stephen had fed them lies about me. Feeling betrayed made me sad. In the end, my words never reached the in-laws. Despite being a housewife, I'm seen as not doing any housework. Maybe to someone who doesn't know any better, I might seem like a woman who married a high-income man for his money. Just the thought scared me. On our way back from dining with the in-laws, I asked Stephen about his intention behind spreading false information. "Hey, why did you tell lies? I've been trying hard with the cleaning and everything. What are you dissatisfied with?" However, Stephen didn't respond to my words. "Hey, are you listening?"
"Shut up."
He dismissed my words with a single phrase, and silence fell between us again. How could I clear up the misunderstanding with the in-laws? And why did Stephen change? If something I did upset him, I wish he'd tell me. Or if it's something else, I want some explanation. I continued to feel anxious about Stephen, who wouldn't share anything with me. Stephen's treatment of me got even worse afterward. He complained about the occasional meals I prepared, and made a fuss if he found a single hair, claiming I hadn't cleaned. If I ever tried to lie down on the couch, he'd scold me for being lazy. His returns home became noticeably later, and it became normal for him to come home in the morning. Eventually, there were many days he didn't come home at all. Yet I couldn't stand up to Stephen, despite such terrible treatment. Stephen was the marriage partner I had finally found. He might be treating me poorly now, but maybe he'd return to the kind Stephen he was before. Above all, if we divorced, I was sure I'd never marry again. Would I end up living my life alone? Just the thought sent chills down my spine. Even though our marriage was falling apart, I didn't have the courage to let go of the husband figure. However, when Stephen began coming home in the mornings, I noticed something odd. A scent of perfume I didn't recognize wafted from Stephen's suit. Was it a woman's perfume? There was also a faint smell of makeup. Upon closer inspection of the suit, I found a part with red lipstick on it. At that moment, I was certain of his infidelity. In fact, I had suspected Stephen of cheating ever since the late nights and absences from home began to increase. Rather, I had no choice but to suspect it. The frequent late returns and the increasing number of times he was away from home. I understood he was busy with work, but it was all too sudden. But when faced with evidence of the affair, anger surged within me. Was he at his affair partner's place on the nights he didn't come home? I didn't want to let go of Stephen, though I thought that if he was really having an affair, it was a different story. I decided to confront Stephen. Can we talk? I approached Stephen, who was unusually at home on a holiday. There's something important I need to discuss. Stephen didn't take his eyes off the TV, ignoring my words. Are you listening?
What is it?
Seemingly annoyed, Stephen finally responded after I raised my voice. You're having an affair, aren't you?
Huh? An affair?
Your suit had lipstick on it, and it smells like women's perfume and fabric softener. All those times you said you were working late were lies, weren't they?
Lipstick? I don't know what you're talking about.
Stephen's expression seemed to mock me. Was this a deliberate act? If so, I'd press him until he admitted it. You're having an affair, aren't you? Just be honest.
Whether I am or not, it's none of your business.
No matter how serious I was, Stephen just scoffed. I lost my patience and pressed further. Come on, answer me. Enough is enough. But my feelings didn't reach Stephen.
Being annoying. I have my reasons. You're living off the money I earn. You just need to do as I say.
With that, Stephen left the house. From this conversation alone, I knew my feelings for him were gone. At the same time, my feelings for Stephen cooled rapidly. Why had I been clinging to Stephen all this time? Being married to such a terrible man was only degrading my mental health. Suddenly empowered, I contacted a certain place. 2 months later, I was attending a barbecue hosted by Stephen's company. It was open to employees and their families, so I was able to join. Stephen seemed reluctant, but since other employees were bringing their families, he had no choice but to invite me. Stephen had also invited his parents, and when we arrived, the in-laws were already helping with the meat preparation. Oh, Stephen and Harper, you came too.
She kept nagging about wanting to go.
Hearing Stephen's words, the in-laws glared at me. As the barbecue started, people gathered around Stephen. He acts one way at home, but pretends to be a good person outside. It made me even angrier. Yet, even at the barbecue meant for fun, Stephen kept bad-mouthing me.
She's really useless.
He must be spreading rumors about me at work, too. None of the employees tried to stop Stephen, instead giving me cold stares. People continued to flock around Stephen. Apparently, the president was among them, too.
Stephen, is that your wife? The one from the rumors? Well, Ah, Stephen, you're having a tough time, huh?
Despite my presence, the president made derogatory remarks about me.
My wife is a parasite that doesn't even clean.
Stephen didn't deny the president's words and added more false statements. Normally, I would just stay silent, but today was different. Excuse me, our house is always clean. Aren't you the one always slacking off on your rounds and staying at your lover's place, the president's daughter?
What?
The employees and the in-laws were in an uproar, and the president was surprised.
What are you talking about?
Ignoring Stephen's panic, I spread out photos and documents on a nearby table. Seeing this, Stephen became even more flustered. Naturally, the photos I laid out were undeniable evidence of Stephen's affair. 2 months after our fight, I hired a detective to gather evidence of Stephen's infidelity. I was determined to catch him in the act. Unable to handle it alone, and after much deliberation, I decided to hire a detective. After the contract was signed, it didn't take a week before various pieces of evidence were presented to me. Photos of Stephen walking arm in arm with a woman I didn't know. Photos of him entering a hotel with that woman. Pictures of him going into what seemed to be a luxurious high-rise mansion, presumably the woman's home. There was more than enough evidence to present. Moreover, according to the detective's findings, this woman was the daughter of the president of the company where Stephen worked. She was, in essence, the president's daughter. I wasn't sure how they met, but Stephen was frequently visiting her home and appeared to be very intimate, suggesting it wasn't a recent acquaintance. Impossible. Even though I was shocked to see the lipstick on his suit, seeing my husband intimately involved with an unknown woman was even more shocking.
We can investigate more, but the pattern of behavior is the same, so I doubt anything more will come out.
Is that so? Thank you. With that, I decided to stop the investigation. There was only one thing left for me to do: divorce. How could I stay with such a man any longer? All that was left in me was anger. By the time the investigation was over, I had already been invited to the barbecue. Knowing Stephen, he probably spoke ill of me at work too, so I decided to expose his affair at the barbecue. I was unsure if it would work, and didn't even know what Stephen had been saying about me at work. But everything went exactly as I had hoped.
Hey, Harper, why do you have this? I mean, how could I be with the president's daughter?
Oh, what? You're still trying to dodge the situation even now? With solid evidence and the identity of the other party known? Mr. President, this woman in the photos is your daughter, right? May I confirm that with you? I handed the photos to the president. The president, hesitantly checking, murmured softly,
That's my daughter, no mistake. Hey, Stephen, how did you meet my daughter? Well, answer me.
The atmosphere at the barbecue, which had been enjoyable until my revelation, changed abruptly. Stephen was desperately trying to dodge the question as usual.
No. Can't answer, can you?
Possibly overwhelmed by the president's authority, Stephen began to explain how he met the president's daughter. Apparently, they met in the company's parking lot. He happened to see the president's daughter, who had some business at the company, and struck up a conversation. The president's daughter knew of Stephen, who was known as an elite within the company, and was aware that he was married. Still, she was thrilled when he approached her, and ended up following him, as she later told. However, the president's daughter did not break off her relationship with Stephen. At this point, regardless of her being the president's daughter, I decided to pursue compensation without holding back.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. You were at fault, too, for following his lead. But this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't approached her in the first place. We'll discuss the details and your excuses on your next workday. Come to my office first thing in the morning. How could this...
Seeing that talking to the president was futile, Stephen turned to plead with me.
Come on, Harper, forgive me, okay? What's going to happen to my job now?
Huh? What are you saying? Remember what you've done to me until now? After all that, how can you ask for forgiveness?
That's
spreading false information to the company and your parents, proudly saying your wife is incapable? Mother-in-law gasped in shock at my words.
Hey, Harper, was everything Stephen said a lie?
What did he tell you?
Just like he said before, that you barely do any housework and just lays around all day.
That's a lie. I did clean and cook. It was Stephen who always complained and refused everything. Normally, they would believe my words, but given the circumstances, no one was inclined to trust Stephen anymore.
I'm sorry, Harper. I can't believe it was all lies. I'm truly sorry. We believed our son too much.
Following the in-laws' apologies, the president and the employees began to apologize one after another. Well, I wasn't going to fully forgive them, but I pretended to accept their apologies to settle the situation. Indeed, I was furious about being ridiculed. But Stephen was the one who created this whole situation. My anger was directed solely at him. I've consulted a lawyer. Let's get divorced.
What? Divorce? Why?
It's obvious, isn't it? We're getting divorced. Stephen looked dejected at my words. However, no one was there to comfort him. The next day, I had brought Stephen to a law firm. The president's daughter was also coming, brought by the president, ensuring a conducive environment for discussion. As everything was prepared, the lawyer proceeded with the discussion in a matter-of-fact manner. Stephen was downcast, and the president's daughter looked shocked and pale. This is...
Photos taken by a detective hired by Harper.
Why? I suspected Stephen might be having an affair. He'd come home smelling of perfume and with lipstick on his suit. How could I not suspect? Listening, the president nodded beside his daughter.
What Harper desires is a divorce from Stephen and compensation from both Stephen and you.
Compensation? I didn't do anything wrong. I was just approached.
Of course you were. Just because you were approached doesn't mean you had to follow him so easily. You knew he was married, didn't you?
She appeared quite young, though her exact age was unclear. She seemed unable or unwilling to admit any wrongdoing, frowning in discomfort.
Divorce and demanding compensation? That's just... Stephen, how about you consider the situation you're in? If you were truly remorseful, those words wouldn't come out of your mouth.
Stephen had no comeback to the president's words. This is my final wish. Divorce and pay the compensation.
But...
Frustrated with Stephen's repeated buts, I said, if you keep this up, we'll just go to court. Desperate for a divorce, I had even considered taking it to court. Apparently, the mention of court frightened Stephen enough. He agreed to the divorce and the payment of compensation. Then, perhaps realizing she couldn't escape the situation, the president's daughter reluctantly agreed to pay compensation as well. She tried to rely on her father, the president, but was rebuffed with, "Dad's not going to pay for your mistakes. Clean up your own mess. Don't underestimate the real world." Following this, Stephen and I successfully divorced. The compensation was paid in a lump sum by both Stephen and the president's daughter, as I had specified. With that money, I moved to a new apartment. After the divorce, I received apologies again from the president and the in-laws. I was also informed about what happened to Stephen. Apparently, he was fired. His involvement with the president's daughter was one reason angering the president, but the official reason for his dismissal was misconduct. The president's daughter was also made to break off her relationship with Stephen. In fact, she wanted nothing more to do with Stephen, leaving him without a wife, the president's daughter as his girlfriend, and his job. Had I not exposed him at the barbecue, Stephen would have continued his affair. The worsening behavior, the spread of false information about me. What would have become of our marriage if it had continued? The mere thought sends shivers down my spine. Now, living comfortably in my new apartment, with the compensation money, I enjoy a very comfortable life every day. I don't have to be mindful of anyone and can focus solely on myself. I wish I had asked for a divorce sooner, but Stephen probably wouldn't have acted without the exposure at the barbecue. Either way, waiting turned out to be the best course of action. Currently, I work at a nearby variety store. Being surrounded by things I love brings me great joy. I truly wish to live a life not swayed by anyone else, walking my own path from here on out.